So this week's Parshas Matos Massei, we have, there's a number of things that the Parshas talk about. One interesting aspect that Massei discusses is the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael, the borders of Eretz Yisrael. And now the way the Torah describes the borders, it mentions a lot of detailed cities that, we might not be so familiar with. But just to give you sort of a bird's eye view of the story, the Torah describes the borders of Eretz Yisrael from sort of the southeastern part of Israel, going all the way around to the northeastern part. Right? So that's the order, that's the way the Torah describes it. And so the way the Torah describes the borders of Eretz Yisrael is that it picks one particular spot to begin discussing the borders and ending with that same spot, right? So it goes in like a full circle around the land. So if we were God, right, and we're trying to describe Eretz Yisrael, and we have to pick one particular spot on the land to use as a reference point to go all the way around to describe the borders, what area of Eretz Yisrael would we pick? Honestly, we probably pick the nicest spot. I don't know, Yerushalayim maybe, or it has to be on the border. I don't know, the Kinneret is a nice place, Tzvat, but these are nice cities. The place that the Torah uses to pick as the reference point to begin talking about Eretz Yisrael and to end talking about the land of Israel is the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea. The place of Sodom, which is very, very odd. It's very, very odd. Not only is that, probably it's without a question it's the least fertile part of the land, but it's also throughout Tanakh we find that spot, that place of the Dead Sea, the Yam HaMelech, and the place of Sodom, which is where the city of Sodom was, that is the poster child for destruction and for unpleasantness and for difficulty. So, for example, when the Torah describes Chas v'Shalom about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and the exile of the Jewish people from the land, it says "K'mapei chastoim v'hamoira," that the Eretz will be turned into, like the destruction of Sodom v'Amorah that'll sweep through the countryside. So, in other words, Sodom v'Amorah is not, that place of the Yam HaMelech is the place that you use to describe what Eretz Yisrael is in a state of destruction. So why in the world would the Torah use that as the reference point in describing the borders of the land as we're coming into a lush, beautiful, getting us excited about Eretz Yisrael? Why would you use that? Like that's the place that you talk about. The truth is like this. If you think about it, whenever the entire process of the genealogy of David HaMelech, who's the king of Eretz Yisrael, ultimately leading to Mashiach Tzidkenu, who's going to reestablish the kingdom of Eretz Yisrael. Everything that's David HaMelech oriented, everything that's Mashiach oriented, always begins in an ugly way. It always starts off in an ugly way. And so, for example, where does David HaMelech come from? So you know that on his great-great-great-grandmother's side, right? He comes from Rus, who ultimately goes back to Moab, who was ultimately a child of Lot with his own daughters. This is an amazing thing, that you're talking about the greatest soul of all time, David HaMelech Mashiach Tzidkenu, coming from a union that's not only disgusting, a man with his own daughters, but it's usher. It's terrible. By the way, where did that happen? Or where, put it better, that happened in the area of Sodom v'Amorah. The reason why Lot was with his daughters, that eventually gave birth to Ammon and Moab, leading to Rus, leading to David and Mashiach, was because Lot and his daughters survived the destruction of Sodom. The daughters thought that was the end of the world at large. They were like Noah and his family. They had to repopulate the world, so they lived with their father. So it's an amazing thing. The beginning of David actually comes from that ugly relationship between Lot and his daughters, revolving around Sodom. In fact, Chazal say the following thing. The pasuk says, "Matzasi David Avdi." Hashem says, "I found my servant David." It's a pasuk. So the simple translation of that pasuk is that Hashem is saying, of all the Jewish people, I found someone that's worthy of being the king. But Chazal say an amazing thing. Chazal say, Hashem says, "I found David, my servant," and Chazal asks the question, "And where did you find him?" And the answer is Sodom, in the city of Sodom. In fact, the word Sodom, Samach Daled Mem, is brought down in the Sfarim. It's Rosh Tevis. It's an acronym for the words Soid David Malka, the secret of David HaMelech. And so there's something about, it's such a phenomenal thing that the emergence of David HaMelech, the king of Israel, which will eventually lead to the ultimate, to the greatest king of all, the full manifestation of Eretz, which is Mashiach, starts with Sodom, and it starts with such an ugly union. More than that, go down the line of David HaMelech's genealogy. Then you have, first of all, even after Lot is with his daughters and so on, in order to get that that family line into the Jewish people. It comes from Rus, right, who converts. So it's already not such a great yichus, right? The fact that it's coming from a convert. More than that, this convert, this woman Rus, she eventually marries Boaz, right, who is from the tribe of Yehuda. That's why David is from the tribe of Yehuda on his father's side. And by the way, how did that union take place? Also, very, very odd, right? Rus sneaks into Boaz's house middle of the night, and it's not so sneistic. That's not something that you would put on like a shidduch resume, like that's not that's not a good idea to do. But somehow that's what happens. More than that, David HaMelech himself, in order for him to have his son Shlomo, who eventually again continues the line leading to Mashiach Tzidkenu. Where does Shlomo come from? Well, Shlomo's mother, David's wife. David had many wives, but the wife of David that is the mother of Shlomo was Bathsheba. What was the relationship, how they find each other? Also, not such a pretty thing, right? David is looking out the window and he sees Bathsheba, who's a married woman at the time, and he manipulates the situation in order to make her not married anymore, to marry her. It's an ugly thing. It's not so posh. Again, David Melech was a big tzaddik, and we don't understand anything that he did in his life, good or bad, but the pasuk already says that this was a blemish on David HaMelech's, on his resume, right? And it's an amazing thing. And dafka, that union between David and Bathsheba, that's what gives birth to Shlomo, eventually leading to Mashiach Tzidkenu. All these strange things, all these oddities when it comes to David HaMelech. More than that, Chazal even say a shocking thing, that David HaMelech's own father, Yishai, who was one of the Gedolei Hador, was one of the greatest Jews, not only the greatest Jews of the generation, he was one of the greatest Jews of all time. Chazal say that there were only 4 Jews that died without ever actually sinning, without committing a sin. The 4 people were Binyamin, the son of Yaakov, one of the 12 tribes, right? The father of Moshe Rabbeinu, Amram, the father of David, Yishai, and David's son, one of David's sons, Kalev. So Yishai is the top 4. And Chazal say an amazing thing, that the birth of David HaMelech came in the following way, that Yishai, how this happened, I'm not sure, but Yishai, for whatever reason, when he was with his wife, he didn't think it was his wife. He thought it was the maid. It was a whole crazy story over there. But you have a situation of where Yishai is with his wife, impregnating her with the soul of David HaMelech, while he's thinking something not 100% so nice. And so, again, the soul of David emerges into the world, surrounded by that which is ugly. And this is a phenomenon, this is something we find throughout the entire genealogy of David. Even another way, go back to David's, on his father's side, going back to Yehuda. Where does Yehuda's children come from, right? Yehuda and Tamar. Yehuda and Tamar, the same thing. Yehuda's walking down the street, he sees a woman, and he's overtaken by her, and she seems like a prostitute, and they're together. It turns out it's his own daughter-in-law, and from that union comes the 2 sons, Peres and Zarach, and from there comes David HaMelech. Everything that every plot line along the path of bringing David's soul into the world is ugly. It's always ugly. Chazal say even more than that. Chazal say we have a tradition that the soul of Mashiach Tzidkenu is gadol b'medina, is going to be a soul that's going to be lost among the riffraff of the world. Now, how would that play out with Mashiach himself, I don't know, but there is such a phenomenon that there's something about the souls of David and his line leading to Mashiach Tzidkenu that's surrounded and wrapped up in ugliness. That's the way it is. And again, going back to what I said before, when Chazal say, where did Hashem first think of the soul of David? In the city of Sodom. More than that, if you think about this, even in time, the specific, dates on the calendar that are significant in terms of the genealogy of David are ugly dates. The Chassam Sofer, for example, in one of his drushes, makes calculations to prove that what was the day that Rus became pregnant with David's great-grandfather, David's grandfather. What was the day that Rus and Boaz were together that begins the line for David HaMelech? Some Sofer makes calculations that day was Shavuos B'Tammuz. Shavuos B'Tammuz. Of all the days of the year. There's a tradition that we have that the birthday of David is Tisha B'Av. There's also a tradition we have, his Yortzeit was on Shavuos, but there's a tradition that his birthday was on Tisha B'Av. With Mashiach also, Chazal say explicitly that Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av. Of all the days of the year, those are the ugly. If let's put it this way, if there's any days of the year that are in time, the Sodom of the years, you know what I'm saying? Like it's Shavuos B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. These 3 weeks, and Dafka in these 3 weeks, this is the birthday of David, when Rus becomes pregnant. I mean, it's amazing things. And so what's the pshat? How do we make sense of this? And again, bear in mind, this is why, I'm going back to my original point, the reason why the Torah uses the Yam HaMelech, which we know scientifically is the lowest place on earth, which is a phenomenal thing if you think about it, that Davka in Eretz Yisrael should be the lowest place on the planet Earth. It's an amazing thing. But Davka, the Torah uses that lowest place as the reference point to describe Eretz Yisrael. What that's telling you is that you want to get into Eretz Yisrael, you want to connect yourself to the king of Eretz Yisrael, the David HaMelech, Yussie Zakutinsky, which is all about Eretz Yisrael. Get ready for Zidon. Because you have to realize that everything is going to look ugly, everything is going to look like the lowest place on earth, but if you dig deep enough, over there you'll find David HaMelech, over there you'll find Mashiach. And so the question we have to now think about is, why would the Rebbeinu Shalom do that? Why would the Hashem Yisparach package such unbelievably great and awesome souls and such powerful, redemptive energies in such ugly places? So I'll share with you something that we find in the writings of Ramosha David Valley. Ramosha David Valley, I'm sure many of you have heard of the Ramchal, right? Ramosha Chaim Latzato. So one of his greatest students was Ramosha David Valley. Ramosha David Valley wrote Svarim and all of Tanakh, and they're amazing, astounding Svarim. But there's two volumes in particular. They're called Sefer HaLikutim. Just random torahs, random ideas from Ramosha David Valley. These torahs are all about, they're unbelievable. It's a lot about Mashiach. It's a lot about Christianity, in fact. About, our relationship with Christianity. It's just like fascinating stuff. So let me share with you a couple lines what he writes over here. He's going on the pasuk. There's a pasuk in Navi where the Rebbeinu Shalom says to the Jewish people the following thing: "Mipi oilim v'yankim yisadet ha'ois." We say to Hashem that from the mouth of babes, right, from the mouth of children, Hashem, you've established strength. You've fortified. You've given the Jewish people strength. And where does that strength come? Where is it found? In the mouths of children. What does that mean? So listen to what he says. Hatikun hagadol hazeh, said Ramosha David Valley, the great tikkun, the rectification of all universes, the emergence of Mashiach, David, Mashiach, everything the world is leading towards. Ratzah Hashem Yisbarach Lashlima, the Rebbeinu Shalom specifically wants a specific type of Jew to bring out this tikkun, to bring out this perfection, to bring redemption. What type of Jew? Specifically, he says, through young people. Young people, literally young people, said Ramosha Valley, have to be the ones to take upon themselves the responsibility to bring Mashiach. What does that mean? Shehem HaTzadikim HaMasaktim, because they have to be the ones, they have to become the tzaddikim that ultimately bring Mashiach. Why? The reason why the Rebbeinu Shalom specifically needs young people to do this, not old rabbis with gray beards. Why? So he says 2 points. He says, because whenever the Jewish people or a Jewish person is about to do something, that's monumental in terms of bringing Mashiach, or whenever an event in world history is taking place that's monumental in terms of bringing Mashiach, then the first thing that's gonna happen to fight against that is that all of a sudden the sudden and the evil side is going to come to God and say, "Oh, how could you let this happen? The Jews don't deserve it." He's going to start prosecuting. So said Ramosha David Valley, but the Rebbeinu Shalom has a trick. If God packages these monumental events and monumental accomplishments within Jews and within situations that on the surface look like uneventful, or the opposite, they look ugly, then it's going to go under the radar. And the evil one is not going to be motivated to prosecute and to try to stop this event from taking place. In other words, think about this: if the other side knew, if the other side looked down and saw Rus and Boaz together, right, and the sudden thought for a second that this union is going to lead to David HaMelech, to Mashiach Tzidkenu, then the first thing the sudden is going to do is try to prosecute and to stop this marriage from happening. So what does Hashem do? Hashem makes that marriage take place when? Shavuos B'Tammuz. And then the sudden is thinking, there's no way that Mashiach is going to come from a union on Shavuos B'Tammuz. The Rebbeinu Shalom looks at Lot and his two daughters, right? The son looks at Lot and his two daughters and says to himself, there's no way that this union could actually bring redemption. So it's not. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to start complaining to Hashem that this union should not take place. What do I care? There's no way that this is going to be eventful. Said Ramosha David Valley, it's the same thing. If mitzvahs that are necessary for the coming of Mashiach were to be given over to big tzaddikim with long gray beards, then those are the first people that the Sudden is going to, that's on his top 10 most wanted list, those tzaddikim. So of course the Sudden is going to prosecute against them. So what does Hashem do? Hashem takes those mitzvahs and those monumental events that need to take place for Mashiach to come, and who does he give them to? Davka to people that on the surface are the ones that you would least expect to bring Mashiach. Why? Because then it's Davka under the radar, and the Sudden has no idea what's happening, and he doesn't expect it from coming. And because of that, he doesn't prosecute, and then, lo and behold, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, from lighting his two doors, Mashiach comes. So it's Davka in Sodom, it's specifically in Sodom, in an ugly package, that's specifically where Hashem puts the potential for Mashiach to come. He goes on further. Because if you had big tzaddikim that were involved in these accomplishments, then again, as I said, the Sudden would be aware of this, and he would be looking for that, and so there's no element of surprise. And he goes on to say, more than that, another reason is also he says, in order for Mashiach to come, see, you have to understand, like Mashiach is a chiddush, redemption is a chiddush. It's a huge chiddush. It's a huge novelty. It's something new. See, when we think of Mashiach, what do we think of? We think of the world right now a little bit better. That's not what Mashiach is. Mashiach is not the world right now a little bit better, or even a lot better. Mashiach is a different universe altogether. It's a different reality. It's a different life. It's a different way of living. In order for that chiddush, for that new reality that's called Mashiach to come to the world, it demands in avodah, it demands a service of God that's also a chiddush. It's also something novel and new and unbelievable and unexpected. So says Ramesh Davavali, who is going to be the ones that are able to offer to God a service that's unexpected? It's not going to be the tzaddikim with long white beards. That's expected. It's specifically young people, said Ramesh Davavali, that have a big Yetzer Hara, right? They have a big temptations, big Yetzer Hara, all sorts of craziness going inside. And you look at them, all you see is Sodom, the lowest place on earth. But if those people can muster the strength to offer to God some level of commitment, some level of devotion, then that's a chiddush. That's something new, that's unexpected. It goes under the Sudden's radar, and it also awakens from heaven the Rabbanei Shalom to give us something new, which is called redemption. So this is exactly the mystery of how Mashiach comes into the world. The mystery of Mashiach is, it's all revolving around the Yam HaMelech. It's all revolving around the Dead Sea. It's all revolving around that lowest place on earth, because it's specifically the lowest places on earth. It's specifically the lowest times of the year, and it's specifically the lowest Jews of all generations and of that particular generation. That's dafka there. If you dig deep enough, you'll find the potential of actually bringing redemption. Because Hashem plants the keys for redemption and the accomplishments necessary to bring the redemption, specifically within packages that are the lowest and the ugliest, and it's for a reason. That's what the Rebbeinu Shalom needs. That's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. So, let me end off a quick story. I have a couple minutes left. It's just a quick ma'aseh. I just saw this the other day. One of the previous Slama Rebbes used to say this story. I think that the Shmuel used to say this following story: that he was once traveling in Europe, traveling to a certain location. He had to pass by a certain inn. And in this inn, the Rebbe was staying by this inn, and he's looking around, seeing all the other visitors, all the other travelers, and he happens to just notice this one person, and like tzaddikim have eyes like this, and he just notices on this person there's something special, something shining. He looks like a chush v'yid, And so what happens is that he goes, he walks over to him. He says, Rav Yid, Vasmachs Yid, what's your name? Where are you from? He says, okay, my name is so and so. What do you do? Oh, I'm a businessman. I think he said I'm a shoemaker, whatever it is. And the Rebbe sort of investigates the person's life, and there's really nothing special. And so the Rebbe says, if you don't mind me asking, until now I've been a little bit, sneaky. Now I'm just going to be direct. I look at you and I see something special. So tell me about yourself. What's special about you? This guy's like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I'm like a regular guy. He said, the Rebbe asked him, tell me about your davening. He said, davening, I don't know how to read. So he said, tell me about your learning. I told you, I don't know how to read. I have nothing. I don't know how to daven. So I was thinking, but there's got to be something. So go through your daily schedule with me. So he says, okay, fine. I wake up, I go to work, nothing eventful. And then until he gets to the end of the day. And he says, and before I go to sleep, before I close my eyes, I say Shema. That's the one thing I know. I say Shema. And then I turn to God every night. I say the same thing. I turn to God and I say, God, I hope you give me back my soul tomorrow morning, but it's on one condition. I'm happy to accept my soul back tomorrow morning if that means that you trust and you have confidence in me that I'll be able to accomplish what I have to accomplish in life. But if the person says, but God, if you've given up on me, if you don't believe in my potential anymore, then just keep my soul and that'll be it. So Rebbe said, that's it. You see, this amazing thing, you could have that type of mentality of living a life with a sense of mission, with a sense of purpose, and be able to look at yourself and say that if I'm alive, it means the Rebbeinu Shalom trusts me and believes in my potential. That's packaged in like a shoemaker. And that's what the Rebbe was seeing. He was seeing a Jew who is like a Sodom. It's a Yam HaMelech, it's a Dead Sea, but when you dig deep enough, you see in there, mamash, unbelievable potential for attachment to God and devotion and something new, a chiddush. And that's what Hashem should see in each and every one of us. That's what we have to see in ourselves. We have to see in other Jews around us. When you look at another Jew in these generations, instead of seeing a Dead Sea, you have to see a David HaMelech that's somehow concealed underneath that Dead Sea. So Hashem should help. We should be zeichet to find the David HaMelech inside of each and every one of us, and be able to find the collective soul of David HaMelech.